It seems like these days you have an account for everything. You can't get an oil change, walk down the street, or sometimes even buy a cup of coffee without having to download an app, create an account, right? So how do we address this? We really have to focus on account security, and we have to understand the best way to set up an account. Most accounts have everything here that I'm talking about, and if they don't, they have some sort of variation of it, so apply these techniques accordingly. The first thing that are going to be asked for when you're creating an account is that email address, right? Or some sort of identifier, an email address or a phone number. As you've learned in the previous videos, you now know how to create an unlimited number of email addresses and how to access almost an unlimited number of phone numbers. So decide what email and phone number you are going to use for these accounts. Then they may ask you for some sort of username. As you may have seen from the previous videos, first thought last name is not the best username to use for anything. Use something that's unique, something that you can remember, and don't use the same username for all of your accounts. Next, it's going to ask you for a password. Do not use the same password that you use for all other accounts. Make it a unique password. I know this is difficult, so if you have to write it down somewhere, put it inside some sort of encrypted container, which we will talk about later, or even use a password manager, do so. When coming up with a password, it's important to understand that a passphrase is much better than the passwords that we've been told previously are effective. For example, if I'm using asterisk capital J underscore 6 period exclamation point uppercase H WP, I think I'm creating a very, very strong password, when in fact using a passphrase such as the yellow horse ran fast on 6 Sundays is much, much more secure because of the concept of entropy. We can talk about the mathematics behind it, but generally speaking, a longer password is much more secure. And for humans, it's easier for us to remember a phrase. If you're using a passphrase instead of a password, do not use something that is common, such as the beginning of a book. Do not use something as common as it was the best of times, it was the worst of times as your passphrase. While it may be a long passphrase and mathematically strong, the fact is that adversaries use things such as dictionary attacks, which contain well-known phrases, to brute force your account. Next, you're likely going to be asked for some sort of two-factor authentication. Generally, what people use for two-factor authentication are text messages to their SIM-based phone number. We discussed in a previous video why you should not be using your SIM-based phone number. What's the alternative? Well, you can use VoIP, but there's something that's even better than VoIP and more convenient. It's called an authenticator app. An authenticator app is an app that you can download from many different providers that allows you to get your 6-digit token, those little numbers that are usually sent to you via text, off of an app on your phone. There are many different providers of authentication apps, and it's up to you to do a little bit of research to see which one you like, or just send me a message and I'll give you a recommendation based on what I use. These authentication apps allow you to bypass the need for any phone number whatsoever. So you're protected against SIM jacking and you're protected against any type of SMS text interception by a very sophisticated adversary. Then you're probably going to be asked to fill out a series of questions. What was the name of the school that you went to at high school? What was the name of the street you grew up in? What's your favorite flavor of ice cream? As evidenced by very notable hacks, it is not a good idea to use answers to these questions that actually make any sense. Use non sequitur answers. If they ask you, what is the name of the street that you grew up in? I don't know, green hot dogs would be a good answer. Write all of this stuff down, put it somewhere safe. Again, put it somewhere in paper, put it in a physical safe, or put it inside an encrypted digital container, which we will cover in another video. Next, most accounts allow you to recover them or use something called a backup code to access them in case you don't have your two-factor authentication token with you. This means maybe the phone which contains your authenticator app isn't with you at the moment. Well, you can use a backup code and your password to still access that account. Make sure that you look at all the security settings in the account to see if they offer backup codes. Recovery codes are codes that you can use one time in case you lose access to the email address, you forgot your password, or any number of things. The recovery code allows you to reset all of the things in the account from scratch. Not all accounts work the same, and recovery codes and backup codes vary provider to provider. Lastly, you may be asked to provide a backup email address or a backup phone number to recover your account in case all of those previous methods fail, or if someone has hijacked your account. Remember that the information you provide here is going to be used to recover your account, so don't use a phone number or email address that are easily guessable and easily hackable. If my recovery email is first.lastname@gmail.com with a password of my kid's birthday 123, then the account is only as secure as those backup recovery methods. What I like doing for my recovery email address is I have a paid encrypted email provider, which I use for all of my recovery emails. That way, that provider can provide me technical support should I need it on the phone, live, human to human. I'm often asked, should I use my real name for any of these random accounts? Well, I think that using your real name opens up unnecessary vulnerabilities. If it's an account that you don't really need to have access to and you can just duplicate and make another one if you have to, such as a supermarket discount code, I don't see any reason to use your real name. Now, if you're using something like a bank account, I think you're required to use your real name for those, so I would certainly use my real information when required by law.